Hello, and welcome to the 17th episode of Recluse Horror. This is a daily horror movie review podcast. Just a little background on the project. Back on my birthday in April, I decided I wanted to watch and review a horror movie every single day. I have done so for the past, I think today is 284 days. Although only the last 16 days have been a podcast. Before that, they were text reviews. So each episode, I go over one movie that I've watched that very night, and one or two other movies that I have reviewed in text, and just give any impressions that I have left of those, aided, of course, by the text review. So with me today is Sam, again.
Hey.
And the movie that we tried to watch is The Blackcoat's Daughter. Now, mind you, we did get through this whole movie, but this will be a very short review because the manner in which we watched it is completely the wrong way to watch this movie. It's from The Blackcoat's Daughter from 2015, and we had a ton of technical difficulties while we were trying to watch this. We kept having to pause and walk away from it, and then we'd come back, and all of the momentum the movie had gained, whatever that might have been, was completely lost. And with a movie that's this strong on mood and tone, you can't accurately judge what your feeling would have been if you'd been able to, watch this in one sitting. So I would definitely say, if I had any recommendation for this movie, it's watch it in one sitting if you are able to. If not, walk away and do it another time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, probably.
So did you like it? I mean, in so much as how you were able to view it? Or do you think you would have liked it if you'd been able to watch it the right way?
I don't know about either.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a movie that you kind of have to digest a little bit, and we
Yeah.
just finished watching it.
Yeah, we did. This is 10 minutes ago.
So I'm having a hard time deciding. There's a lot of things I liked about it, and a lot of things I didn't like about it.
Yeah.
So it's tough for me to say, actually. Like, I'm having a hard time deciding whether I like this movie or not.
Yeah.
So.
Well, how would you synopsize this movie? This one's kind of a tough one. If you look up the ones that are on the internet, the synopses on the internet, they kind of give a lot away.
Yeah, that was another thing. Like, I wanted to talk about what I didn't like about the movie, but that gives a ton of the movie away.
Yeah.
And that's a big reason why I didn't like. There's a big part of the movie I didn't like, or it didn't work for me necessarily.
Right. I'm just gonna apologize if you're picking this up. One of my neighbor's terrible dogs is yapping. It's been yapping all night, and I have no idea why. So if you're hearing that, I apologize. We tried to wait for it. We waited a couple of times trying to see if he would shut up. I like dogs, just not that one. So, yeah, I guess, how would you, I would just say it's about, a girl or two girls actually, whose parents, for whatever reason, don't show up at their boarding school when they're supposed to take them away for, like a break of some kind of winter break, I'm assuming. And, yeah, and then a horror movie happens. I mean, that's really all. That's the premise, at least. I don't think it's the plot exactly, but it's definitely the premise. Is there anything else that you would add that you think?
Yeah, probably without giving anything away. This movie has a lot of, mystery element to it.
Yeah.
And kind of the way it, unfolded is my problem with the movie.
Uh-huh.
Not that it is there's a mystery element that's good. I like that about the movie.
Yeah.
Just the way it unfolded, the mystery.
Yeah.
Kind of unfolded. Yeah, it's very, like, mysterious, and you're kind of looking for answers.
Yeah.
The whole movie, yeah.
I liked this one. I'm probably, trying to make up in my head the difference between how I feel that it would have been if I had watched it in one sitting. Regardless, I did enjoy the movie. I thought the acting was good. I thought the pacing was a little slow. And honestly, it feels like stuff doesn't really start happening until the last, half hour, maybe even less. Like when things really start happening. Everything else before that is mood building, which again, just the way we watched it was impossible. The mood of the film did seem like it would be really, really good if you had been able to get through it just in the one sitting. Again, it was technical problems. We weren't just like walking away from it or anything. It didn't compel us to leave or anything like that. What did you think about the acting?
All the acting was good.
Yeah.
I think, I think a lot of it was really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of elements of it were.
Should we just talk about the actors?
Yeah, sure.
Like Emma Roberts is in this.
Yeah, she's one of the more main characters.
She was really good.
Mm-hmm. Emma Roberts, she's from American Horror Story and, oh gosh, what's that? Scream Queens, and she's done a number of horror-ish things. You should probably recognize her. Let's see, what's the name of the oh gosh, the other guy, the guy.
Dexter's.
Yeah,
dad?
Dexter's dad. I know his name.
I don't know his name. It's James
Remar. James Remar.
Yeah, Remar. Yeah.
James Remar. He plays Dexter's dad in the show Dexter. And he's been in 700 million other things, but
he's really good. He's very much Dexter's dad in it though. I thought he was. I thought he put kind of like a very similar performance, but
I thought he was a lot more understated, like a lot more
than Dexter's
chillaxed.
Dad is.
Yeah, than Dexter's dad is.
Let me talk about Emma Roberts.
Well, you didn't have it up. Okay, what do you want to say about Emma Roberts?
Nothing. I don't want to say anything about her.
Sam loves
She
Emma
wasn't
Roberts.
in Nancy Drew or anything.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. She was in Nancy Drew. Sam made me watch that terrible movie. But that's okay, because I've made him watch like 300 horror movies almost, probably.
Amazing movie?
I guess 200. You probably watched like 200 of these, either with me or
have seen
them. Yeah. Of the ones that I've reviewed so far, 200.
I don't know.
It's pretty good.
I've probably seen a lot of them.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah, James. She was really good in this.
Yeah, she was.
A lot of the performances in this, especially hers, were like facial.
Yeah.
Acting.
Yeah, a lot of emoting.
Not a ton of dialogue, but a lot of telling story through
actions and expressions.
Yeah. And they were really good. Like understood.
Yeah. Sometimes that can be really hard to follow these days. People just aren't. You don't need them as much as like silent film era.
Yeah, I think it's specifically Emma Roberts' role.
Yeah.
The other couple characters had less of that.
Mm-hmm. They were still good too. What about the one who played Kat? Is she from anything? Kiernan Shipka?
Mostly TV stuff. Nothing I really watched, and nothing that I'm like, oh, they're this from this movie.
Yeah.
Or this TV show.
Yeah. Oh, she was in here. Oh, that's Little Girl in Fire.
Yeah, a lot of like
kids stuff. Don't Trust the Bee, but that was only one episode. Legend of Korra.
Just random.
Yeah.
Just random appearances in TV shows mostly.
Yeah, she really isn't in a lot.
Yeah.
But she was good. Yeah. I think the only one that I might recognize her from is the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. I think I do kind of remember her being in that. But yeah, she plays sort of the lead, and she's pretty good. Her name is Kat, right? In the movie? Yeah, it's Kat, and then the other girl who's stuck there is Rose. And then, what's her name? Emma Roberts plays a character named Joan. Okay. Well, what else do we talk about? There's so much that you can't talk about.
I guess just if we liked it, the other aspects, like, I really liked the music a lot.
Yeah, the music was really good. Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of, like David Lynch stuff, and whether, I don't know, whether you like David Lynch or not, I feel like most David Lynch movies' sound design is really good.
That's probably fair.
And I feel like the sound design in this was pretty good, fit the mood, fit the atmosphere. There's a ton of atmosphere in this movie. Mm-hmm. I think that's what kept me engaged in the movie.
Yeah.
It sounds nice. It The cinematography is really nice as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's a pretty well put together movie. I feel like whether you like this or not hinges on whether you can follow the pacing, which I have a hard time deciding if I could follow it or not.
Right.
Because of the way we watched it.
And how much the problem that we can't talk about
bugs you. And I think those are the two things. I think otherwise there's not too many reasons to not like this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it does seem like people who have no attention span would have no interest in this movie. If you find yourself getting bored by slow movies, then don't even bother with this one.
Yeah, I think even if it just, from what I could kind of feel, it feels slow because I was watching it and I was like, oh, this movie's a movie about nothing, huh? Got a real Seinfeld going here. So I could have used a few more jokes, but...
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly, I did like it. I thought all of the technical aspects were good. I thought the mood was good, in so much as I could tell. The acting was great. Yeah, and especially Emma Roberts. I have, there are reasons why I don't necessarily, like Emma Roberts on her more actual life stuff. I'm not going to get into, but like her performance in this was really incredible. And yeah, I think she was the best. I don't know. Everything about this is good other than like, it feels like a movie, again, kind of about nothing. It felt like it took forever to get where it did get. Not that that's necessarily a problem if you're able to engage with the mood a little bit more than we were able to.
It's a movie.
It's not the movie's fault.
About?
Honestly, if I started doing... Nothing. About nothing. Honestly, if I started doing like second chance reviews, this would probably be on the top of my list. I've actually talked about that before in some of my text reviews. I've kind of notated like I would give this a second chance review because of whatever circumstances or because I had the wrong impression of something or whatever. And this would be towards the top of my list for sure of rewatching because I didn't dislike this movie. I did like it, but I think I would like it a ton more if I'd been able to really, just see it all in one go. So, before we go, I did want to talk about Osgood Perkins, who was the writer and director for this. Love his stuff. So far, the stuff of his that I have seen has been good with one exception. He was the writer-director of this. He was the writer-director of I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives Inside the House, which I've already reviewed in text, and eventually I will get to, not too far from now, I think I'll get to, in my text reviews. And I really loved it. He does just a super great job of building mood and visuals and all of that stuff. I think there are definitely areas that I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives Inside the House does better and worse than this movie. They're a pretty good contrast for each other, but I'm really excited to see where his career goes. So far, right now, one of my favorite like emerging directors. He's done some acting work and so forth. He wrote The Girl in the Photographs, and that I was a little bit less enthusiastic about. It wasn't directed by him, and you can totally tell that by watching it. And I think he would have done a better job with it, but still I think this script needed a little bit work. It felt a little bit of work. It felt a little bit just commonplace to me, and it didn't go the direction I wanted it to go, that they sort of point you into thinking it's going to be by the title and by the first 5 minutes of the movie. So, was there anything else that you wanted to say about any of this? Would you recommend this, having seen it how you have seen it, would you recommend it to anybody, and if so, whom?
Oof.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
Because it's not, it doesn't seem like it's a very easy watch.
Yeah. Again, the first hour is...
And possibly somebody who I wanted to talk to them about the end of it.
Right. You would tell them to watch it. So
and the end is interesting. And some other stuff is interesting. Just anybody that likes a slower paced movie. Atmospheric movie. Or somebody I wanted to be like, hey, what was that? Why was it like that? Like, I know why it was like that. I just wanted to hear other people's opinion.
Right.
And take on it. It's a very good movie for taking something different away.
Right.
From it than maybe somebody else.
Right. Yeah, I think this does feel like, to me, it does feel like the sort of movie where like, sometimes I do honestly feel a little bit like people's opinions about a movie are wrong. I think if you said you didn't like this because it was boring, you would be right. I think if you said you loved it because it was so moody and great, you would be right. I think if you said, I think this ending is brilliant and I love it, you would be right. If you said that the ending was stupid or confusing or whatever, you would be right. I think all of those different groups, all of those people are right for whatever reason. It's all what you take away from it a little bit. And personally, again, not to get too deep into it, but I did appreciate the ending. I liked the ending. There definitely is a small, well, it's not small, but it's related to a sort of cosmetic issue, sort of, is one way to put it.
I love the idea of the ending.
It's just that one problem that keeps you from...
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, that is sort of it is sort of a problem. But we can't really talk about it in specifics. But that is a problem. I do like, I started to see where I thought they were going, and I always do this thing, like when I get towards the end of a movie, like usually it's a little earlier than this, in the movie, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope it goes to this place. I would love it if it went here. And it did for me. Like the place where the ending went is exactly where I wanted it to. And I was like, that's kind of great. I love it. But yeah, I mean, again, there's no opinion about this movie that's wrong. To me, it's just totally based on your circumstances, how you watched it, and how you feel about these sorts of movies. I think I would recommend it to anybody, again, atmospheric movies, moody movies. If you liked I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives Inside the House, if you were able to make it through that movie, this will be nothing. This really will be no problem for you. And I'm still excited about Osgood Perkins. I hadn't seen this. I had been wanting to see this for a while and just wasn't able to. And I really liked it. Yeah. I think I would have liked it a lot more, which is sort of disappointing to me because I'm not going to have time to rewatch this one anytime soon. So, okay, well, that's our review. Again, so many qualifiers on that one, but yeah, it's a good one. That was Blackcoat's Daughter from 2015. So the second movie that we're going to talk about actually has a few similarities a little bit to the Blackcoat's Daughter, not in any meaningful way, but in the fact that I watched this in the complete wrong way, which is just in the wrong mood for it in this particular case. And I fucking hated this movie. It's Darling from 2015. Sam, how did you feel about this movie?
It was okay. I definitely didn't dislike it as much as you did.
Yeah.
It's very not story driven.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's very meandering.
Mm-hmm.
And normally I have a hard time with that, but it's a pretty short movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's broken up in such a way that it's a little. I think maybe they knew that, so
yeah.
It's a little bit more digestible.
Mm-hmm.
But even with all that work, I could kind of tell they tried. It's still not much of an idea.
Yeah.
It feels like something where they had like a kind of idea,
mm-hmm.
and then tried to stretch it out into a whole movie.
That's what it felt like to me.
And
I'm not about that.
And it shows.
Mm-hmm.
But there's aspects I liked and things I thought were good about it, and
mm-hmm.
so on.
Okay, so before we get too far into this, I'm gonna actually before I talk about the description, as a warning, if you're photosensitive, if you have seizures or flashing lights mess with your brain in whatever way, you should definitely not watch this movie. There are a lot of what amounts to flashing or strobing lights in this movie, and even a warning about it before the movie begins. So, definitely if you have a problem with photosensitivity, don't watch this, and definitely don't watch it in the dark. I think even people who don't have that problem don't watch it in the dark. Luckily, you're not missing much, so. Darling is... it's a movie, it's filmed in black and white about a woman who is hired as a caretaker for what is supposedly the oldest house in the city. which I think is supposed to be New York City, but I'm not sure that they actually ever say, and is told that the house is reputedly haunted. The woman hiring her also tells her that the last caretaker jumped from a balcony of the house to her death. So, I wouldn't usually give this much information, but it's completely and unceremoniously dumped on the audience in the first 3 minutes of the movie with heavy-handed dialogue. The way I said it is pretty much exactly how it's said in the movie. So, after that follows 10 minutes of footage with no dialogue as a woman just walks around in the house, which is really pretty, but to my, admittedly untrained eye, it doesn't look nearly as old as it would have to be for that to be true. The oldest standing houses in New York City were built in the mid-1600s, and none of them seem to look anything like the house that's depicted. While they were shoveling exposition at us, they easily could have, thrown in a line about remodeling, or maybe the house was gutted by fire or something and, partially reconstructed on the inside. They say nothing about it. It just looks like a fairly modern-ish house, 100-year-old house, maybe, something like that. But again, it may not be New York. They just sort of imply it, and I think they show the New York skyline in the beginning.
Well, I'm sure it's renovated. It's upkept.
But a lot of those houses
freshly
are, too.
Painted and...
Yeah, definitely freshly painted.
What are they trying to sell the house?
I
right,
don't
so
know
I
if
imagine they're trying to sell the house.
Are they?
Yeah, so I imagine they probably went over it and...
Yeah.
Recently, like very recently, if that's the case.
Yeah. So... regardless, the rest of the movie has just a few short scenes with dialogue, probably totaling no more than 10 minutes, and not really very much else. If my estimation is even close, that leaves over an hour of the film with nothing but visuals, sound effects, and music to tell the story. Can you call it what happens in that story?
I don't remember the music. I remember liking it enough. I like a lot of the visuals in this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think the lead actress was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's my biggest problem with the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Is it so much is just her.
Yeah.
And she's not the most interesting visual actress.
No.
Even in the breaking points in the movie,
mm-hmm.
They're not as believable as other actors could be.
Yeah.
Well,
and I usually enjoy, when it's done well, I really enjoy when movies use very little dialogue. It's not necessary in a lot of places. And I feel like sometimes when people are in movies a lot by themselves, they feel compelled to make those characters talk to themselves just so that the audience has something to hear. And sometimes it's not necessary. I really like this when it's used well. There are a number of movies that I have seen, including the one that we watched today, that I think it is used well. I just don't think it is here. And like you said, she's not the best emotive actress.
Yeah, and that could just be to the amount of it just being her. In the movie, it's that's really the thing is how if you watch the movie you're gonna get bored of watching her walk around this house. Yeah, for sure. It's impossible to not.
Well, and the movie pretty much relies on a bunch of quick cuts that are used sort of for jump scares, and it gets really tiresome pretty quickly, to me, anyway. Her facial expressions are probably one of the better parts of the movie when they're really weird, when she starts getting really weird. Facial expressions, some of those are effective. Even when she just stares at the camera for a long period of time, sometimes that can be good.
Yeah, half of it is good. Yeah. Half of it is not as good. Yeah. And normally that wouldn't be bad if there wasn't so much of the movie. Yeah. Is just that. So you kind of need all of it to be extra good. Yeah. It puts so much of the movie is relying on it being good, and it's the biggest problem.
So much of this movie focuses on one aspect. Whatever it's focused on, that's the only thing holding the movie together at that point. there's never anything else backing it up. It feels like whatever it is, whether it's her facial expressions, whether it's like, the sound design, whether it's these stupid, jump scare cuts and stuff like that. Whatever it is, it's the only thing holding the movie together. So often it falls apart. It's separated into chapters for what appears to be no reason. And the graphics of the chapters get weirder for only slightly more reason. They're completely in random places throughout the movie. But I mean, at least that's one way of breaking up the monotony. That's
the reason the chapters are there. And I think,
but they don't signify anything. There's like nothing happens in a chapter that
nothing
feels like
new happens in these chapters. They just got far enough into the movie to be like, oh, another chapter should be here.
Yeah, you could move those chapter marks to any other place in the movie, and it would make as much sense as where they put them. That was one of the things that really bugged me, is that the chapters were meaningless, other than breaking it up. Sometimes the use of music and sound effects, I thought, to build tension or suspense or whatever, it sort of worked, but not always. And one place they use what I guess are musical stings after what seem like completely random lines of dialogue. Do you remember that?
Or nothing. She's just like talking. What is she, on the phone or something like that? And she keeps saying, she'll say something to the person on the phone, and all of a sudden, sting. Yeah, but it doesn't mean anything.
Sting. And it's just like, oh, I thought she was supposed to get here tomorrow, or something. Something completely innocuous, and all of a sudden there's a musical sting. It's just completely meaningless. So I don't know. The mood and tone of the movie isn't really that bad, but there's a ton of unanswered questions by the end that are played in a way that doesn't really add to the film. I did think that the choice to film, outside of color, just to do black and white was probably the right one, and it does enhance the creepiness. Would you say that?
Yeah, I think visually, I really like the movie visually, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
It's seemingly a pretty small film.
Yeah.
Like it's not even rated.
Oh, really? Huh.
I don't know what kind of release it had,
Right. Like whether it had a theatrical release or just like film festivals or.
Yeah, I have no idea. But it seems like a pretty small production. So some of the visuals are really good. Some of the stills that you would get out of the movie look really good. I think it's
just not enough to hold together a movie.
I think it's a little case of like style over substance.
Yeah.
And also like Sean Young's in the movie, so I just don't know like what kind of budget or what kind of weird movie this is.
It's basically a cameo. She may not have
what the circumstances of this movie existing is.
Yeah, like how did this get pulled together?
So in a way, it's like hard to judge it
because
like
you have
movie.
No right. Okay, no frame of reference for anything. Okay, well, let's get on to the part that I think is the biggest problem with this movie for me personally, which is the fact that it completely ripped off Polanski.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you remember that?
Well, like the movie, like budgetarily, like.
Budget wise,
I don't know what it is, but everything they've done, everything that happens in the movie is very practical.
Yeah,
and seems very low.
Yeah.
Except for the appearance of Sean Young.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was just like a favor or something to be in the movie.
Yeah.
So I kind of give it a little bit of slack on that one.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very Polanski-esque.
So when I saw this movie, I hadn't seen Repulsion. Repulsion, again, is one that I've talked about once before when I was talking about the Apartment trilogy, when I was talking about psychological horror in the Nightmare episode from 1964. I hadn't seen it at this point, and my memory of this movie is pretty foggy because there's nothing in this movie. But even what I do remember is so clearly a ripoff of Repulsion. And now, I usually don't look up reviews for movies before I do my own review. I try to, keep my opinion completely clean and, whatever. But I was so annoyed by this movie that I was like, am I the only one who thinks this is awful? And looked it up on the internet, and I'm definitely not alone in thinking this was kind of nothing. The visuals, again, kind of interesting, but there's not enough anything for this movie. And what it does have, it steals from somebody else.
I had seen Repulsion already.
Yeah.
before I saw this movie, and I immediately
saw
the comparison.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that's bad because it's not it's not that movie. You know,
Right.
it takes a lot from it. It's also very Hitchcock-esque.
Yeah. I see
Especially
that.
like
Some of the shots.
Dial M for Murder and Psycho. Like a lot of the shots, a lot of the shots,
little
and
of
a lot
the
of the
mood.
framing and mood. Which are the best parts of the movie. So it's kind of weird to say that because they're obviously kind of,
even though it's a ripoff, that's the best part because they ripped it off from good people.
Yeah, which like I don't know, like maybe if the movie had a little bit more originality in other places, it'd be like, oh, that's cool. They kind of have that ish style.
Yeah.
Because that's the stuff
it would feel
I liked.
like emulating instead of just like, this is the only thing we know how to do and we really liked this movie, so here's a house and Sean Young said she'll come by. Like, yeah, I don't know. Okay, well, Repulsion, you might recall, is not the only movie that this movie stole stuff from as far as Polanski is concerned. Do you remember me getting really pissed off about that one scene toward the end?
Probably, but you were mad for the whole thing, so...
It's true.
It didn't really mean much to me.
Okay. So, there's another scene that's directly ripped off from Rosemary's Baby. It's a scene in which Mia Farrow, who's... In this movie, it's Lauren Ashley Carter, who plays Darling. I think her name is supposed to be Darling, right? They call her Darling. But anyway, Lauren Ashley Carter, she's the lead actress. And she reacts to something in horror that the audience never sees. They never show it. So in Rosemary's Baby, this is usually seen as a good choice, making the audience use their collective imagination to decide what the object of Rosemary's attention looks like. And I very much agree with this. I think it's one of the more effective points in the movie. In Darling, this reaction goes on for far too long, and it's yet another shot of her staring directly into the camera. It's almost laughable, and in this movie it seems wrong for two reasons. A, you know what Rosemary is looking at, just not what it looks like in Rosemary's Baby. So you know what type of image you can kind of conjure up. And Rosemary, at this point in the film, is a reliable narrator. In this movie, you have a vague idea of what the woman kind of maybe possibly would be looking at, but because she's an unreliable narrator, she might be looking at nothing at all and be making the same exact faces. It's a very small problem, but it's my favorite movie, so it made me incredibly angry to see them completely rip this off and not do it well. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Do you remember what scene that is that I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what scene it is.
Okay.
It didn't really bug me that much, other than it didn't make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Which I was used to already because this movie doesn't make a ton of sense.
Right. Yeah.
Like you could possibly pull some ideas out of it. You could kind of take your own personal takes on things and pull it out of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But on the movie itself, on the surface, a lot of it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Or possibly just has no purpose.
Uh-huh.
Unless you try to put meaning into it.
Right.
And that's pretty much to me like the biggest fault of the movie going through the whole thing is that a lot of it is kind of purposeless and just existing to fill time.
Mm-hmm. So the whole an hour of this movie is filler.
Which at times can be like pretty taxing and asking a lot of the audience.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the movie looking pretty decent and me thinking it's kind of like a super low budget movie, like it seems like a no budget movie. I don't know. Like
that's the house of somebody that they know.
Yeah.
There's basically one actress in it. Somebody knew Sean Young.
And the director's in it for a minute.
Oh, right. Yeah. I forgot about that.
And there's like 4 other people
with like
go through
30-second, 40-second, parts.
So if it wasn't for those few things, I would be a lot more disappointed with the movie, because
it's so derivative.
I have to assume it's low budget, so I can't be as critical as a movie that had all the chances in the world to be good.
All the backing of Hollywood.
A lot of this seems like we have this stuff right now. Let's try to get a movie out of it. You know, they didn't succeed 100%, but they did make something. Yeah. And well, if this was pieces of cool things. There's pieces of cool things in the movie.
See, if this was put out by a film school director, I would be impressed. If they were in film school making this movie, I would really think this is neat. They're playing with tone, and they're trying to figure out mood and storytelling without dialogue, or these would be great things if you were a film student. The director, I have no idea. I think we're going to pause and try to look up the director. There's one other thing that I know that they did that we...
I like it better than Pod.
See,
all right?
I liked Pod so much better. No. It is so much of a movie. So Pod is the thing...
You're wrong.
We watched it accidentally.
We're just going to yell at each other over which movie is worse.
Can I talk now?
Worser. No, I told you we were going to yell over each other.
Pod... is a movie we accidentally watched 2 days after this because I thought it was the second project of a different director. And I wanted to see that director's work. Instead, I watched Pod. Pod is a much better movie. It is a real movie with a real beginning, middle, end dialogue.
Yeah, but it sucks.
Acting, I liked it so much better. The acting is incredible.
Even if you liked it so much better, it's still not good.
Lauren Ashley Carter did a really good job in that movie. I know she can work and do things. Is there anything else on that guy's credits that we know? What's his name?
No, nothing else that we've seen.
Psychopaths, Carnage Park. I've seen that cover before for Carnage Park. And Ritual, one of the many movies named Ritual. Yeah, I don't know. Pod I liked better, but he has no excuse to me because Pod came out before it. Mickey Keating is his name, is the director's name. But Pod came out before Darling, unless that movie was filmed first and released second, which does happen occasionally. They're only a year apart, right? Then to me there's no excuse. It's the same year. Oh, okay. Well, he made one movie and one failed art project. Sorry.
He made rude, one failed art project and one failed movie.
Whatever. Pod is way better.
I actually don't think either of these movies are good. I wouldn't really recommend any of these movies to anybody, really. Maybe Darling if you wanted to see some like Polanski
rip-off
shots.
Of Polanski. Yeah.
And that has that for it. Like,
yeah,
you can make a post-punk music video out of it, which you couldn't do with Pod.
No.
Pod also I don't think is very good. It's more of a movie.
It's definitely more of a movie.
It's more of like hey, let's make a Stephen King movie.
It is a little Stephen King-y.
But bad. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, but Stephen King movies are already bad. Perfect.
Yeah. No, I personally, I preferred Pod. And we'll get into that pretty soon here, because Pod is really coming up on our list. Like I said, we watched them like 2 days apart. But yeah, the only people I can really suggest, if you've seen, I don't know if I can suggest this movie to everyone. If you've seen Repulsion and you want to see Repulsion again, just watch Repulsion again. Don't watch this. If you have seen Darling and appreciated some of the mood and tone or whatever, again, I would suggest, Repulsion or Rosemary's Baby, but the real one that I think meets it in a more modern way comes from the director of our last movie, which is I would suggest I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives Inside the House. It uses a lot of the same themes, a lot of the same like storytelling devices, but it's much more of a film. There's a real plot, there is some speech, and it's very pretty. It's not black and white. They don't, try to be like, okay, well, we have to make this creepy somehow. Let's just do it in black and white. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's the much better movie. And if you did appreciate elements of this movie, but wanted to see it actually used as a movie, go for I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives Inside the House. Unfortunately, Sam didn't see that one with me because I think he would probably agree that they're similar enough to recommend, but Yeah, did you have anything else that you wanted to say?
No.
I apologize for being so mean to Mickey Keating. I really didn't like this movie. Pod has a lot that I appreciated a lot more. The characters are very strong in that, and the acting is very strong as well. But just overall, this one just made me so incredibly angry. And again, I watched this in the completely wrong mood to watch it. I was tired. I had just gotten out of, like, I don't know, my week and a half of, like, 12-hour shifts, I think, when I watched this. I really would consider maybe doing a second chance review of this one. Maybe I would like it better the second time. Or it would seem even more insufferable that there's nothing that happens in the movie.
Yeah, I don't want to watch it with you.
Yeah.
You're very annoying
Rewatch it.
talking about it now.
So are you. Okay,
Thanks.
well, that's our review of Darling.
I'm glad I do this podcast with you.
From 2015.
It's fun.
So Sam forgot to give his score on this one. Samuel, what's your score?
1 pod. I give it 1. Movie gets 1 pod from me.
Darling gets 1 pod. I think Pod gets like 750 billion.
Pod gets a pod too. They're both pods. Good pod movies.
I think
I'm waiting for Pod Darling versus Pod.
I hope the Pod wins.
Let's see it, Mickey. Darling versus Pod. Get it done.
Oh God. Okay.
Get it done in a weekend, like those 2 movies.
Clearly. Hey, I bet that took a whole week to do Pod. That definitely didn't take more than 2 days to do Darling. If it did, then they real fucked up. Okay, well, so thank you for listening to our garbage nonsense and my yelling. So if you enjoyed this podcast for some weird reason of me poorly reviewing 2 movies, then you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and probably other social media sites. Or if you didn't like the platform on which you watched this, I am also on YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, Podcast Addict, and any number of other podcatchers. If you enjoyed it, please share it with somebody that you love. If you hate it, then share it with somebody that you hate. That's fine too. Counts. Yeah, well, thank you so much for listening, and, oh, and if you have any comments or questions or anything, you can email me at reclusehorror@gmail.com. I keep forgetting to say my email, but, it's all on all of my other stuff, so you should be able to find it anyhow. Or you can comment, rate, review, subscribe, whatever it is on whatever site, and, you know, direct message me or whatever on all of those other sites as well. Please reach out if you're interested or whatever. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.